Okay, my loves, we have an awesome podcast episode today. This one's going to be a little bit different. I am actually being interviewed on this podcast episode by one of my dear friends, Rachel Gainsborough. If you haven't already listened to her episode on the show, make sure to go back. It was a couple of episodes ago. Listen to her story. But on this one, she actually interviews me. And I thought it'd be so interesting for you guys also, especially for anyone who's new here, to hear my story and kind of like how I got started in this space. So I think you'll just really enjoy this episode because both Rachel and I, we have some great energy between the two of us and have really similar stories, which is really cool. Also, if you like this episode, if you want me to put more podcast episodes where I'm actually being interviewed on, make sure to actually either leave me a review or just message me on Instagram. I'm so curious to see like what you're vibing with. So let me know so that way I can start putting more of what you actually want on this podcast. Okay, so that's it. Let's dive right on into the show.
Hello, and welcome back to the Luxury Rental Doctor Show, where we are all things empowering busy professionals how to unlock financial freedom in the world of luxury short and midterm rental investing. I'm your host, Dr. Rachel Gainsborough, here to guide you every step of the way. We want to talk about burnout. We want to talk about balance. We're heading into the new year, so I want to make sure that we have got our bases covered, and I'm truly thrilled to have with me today the amazing Olivia Tati. She is a powerhouse in this space, and you know what? I think she has mastered the art of intentional living because Olivia went from being a hardworking, burnt-out engineer with $25,000 in student loan debt to now having built a $3 million real estate portfolio. She has traveled to over 50 countries. And guys, she was just on this amazing birthday sabbatical. You need to follow her on social. She is such a joy. Olivia, I remember you. I was actually at a conference and you were introduced to me by the Real Estate Robinsons. And I'm like, who is this woman in this vibrant colored dress? I loved everything about it. You just stood out. But it wasn't always that way because I have seen you in your engineering garb. Let's start from the top, woman. Tell me.
The funny thing is it actually was always that way, but I was forced into the engineering garb. And so it was so funny because I used to be an oil and gas engineer. So I would work in the office, but then I'd also go out to the offshore oil and gas platforms. And so out there, you have to wear fire-resistant clothing. Like it's a part of your PPE. But the funny thing is when you're inside, like they have living quarters there. When you're inside the living quarters, you're allowed to wear baseball caps instead of your hard hat. And so I would always bring my yellow baseball cap that said "Your sunshine in human form" with a rainbow on it. And that was the only color I could get in.
I love that. Oh my gosh. So what is it, Olivia, that initially sparked you to dive into real estate investing, especially while balancing a full-time demanding job?
Totally. So I got into real estate investing during a time of depression, really, is what it was. I was so done with my corporate job, and I'd spent so much time, becoming an engineer. I got my undergraduate in engineering, in chemical engineering, and then my master's in engineering and technology management. All which I realized was just me extending, actually entering into the workforce because I really didn't want to be there. And it's so funny. There's a sticky note that I wrote during one of my internships, and it's like things I could be as well as an engineer. And on there, it's like interior decorator and life coach, so many other things. So I think deep down, I always knew it wasn't quite for me, but I was just doing the things that I thought I was supposed to do. Like my parents are immigrants. They're from Angola, West Africa. They've sacrificed their entire lives to give me a big, beautiful life and sent me to the best schools where I had scholarships. So I put so much time and energy and effort into this career. Then I started working, and about 8 months in, I was just like, this isn't it. This is not it. And at that time, I was in $25,000 worth of credit card debt, and I realized I also didn't have financial literacy. And I realized if I stayed where I was at that time, I would be chained to this job. It's the only thing providing me income right now. There has to be some other way out. So really, I started learning about real estate first as an agent. I actually went and got my license because
Oh,
I needed another way to pay off debt, and I heard people make money in real estate, right? So I got my real estate license. But that's when I started learning more about real estate investing and discovered
mm.
real estate investing and house hacking. I was like, I need that, like passive income. There's these whole like other things that go with it. I just knew that was my way out, and so I was set. That was it.
I love it. And so you mentioned the $25,000 in student loan debt. And I know members of our community have a variety, whether it's $200,000 in student loan debt, $500,000 in student loan debt, but $25,000 is still no small feat to, I guess, manage essentially. So it's no small feat to pay that off. Could you tell us? And you did that, was it in 8 months, Olivia?
Yes, in 8 months.
Oh my
So
gosh.
because I was working my corporate job and I held on to my
Yeah.
corporate job while I got my real estate license. And it was so funny. Before I discovered real estate investing, I was kind of just like slowly getting my real estate license. A month would go by, 2 months. And then I found like Bigger Pockets and that community. 2 weeks later,
Mm.
I finished the course, took the test, was ready to go. And yeah.
Full
And
transparency,
then
I'm still working on mine from like 5 years ago. So good for you.
that's so fair. But that's the thing too. I tell people you don't, especially when it
Mhm.
comes to student loan debt, you do not need to pay that off in order to get started investing in real estate. It's actually smarter to go ahead and go buy a property so that cost covers your payment, right, for your
Right,
student loans. Like I tell
right.
people to do that
I
all the
meant
time.
the real estate license. Yeah, the real estate
Oh,
license I'm still working on from 5 years ago. But yeah, you're absolutely right. These student loan debt, I was able to get that under management through the revenue that was coming in from our real estate investing. So 100%, I'm right with you there.
yes. Yes. Well, and I will say, even for your real estate license, a lot of people, you don't really need it. I think for me, I knew I wanted to get into real estate in some way, shape, or form. So I was like, okay, how can I learn everything I need to know about real estate while also making money so I can pay off my debt?
Yeah,
So it's like, oh,
yeah,
cool,
I
I'm
love
getting
that.
paid to learn. That's awesome. So now I have so many transactions under my belt, even before I'd purchased my first property, right? And I
Yeah,
was getting
yeah,
paid for it, and I was able to, and that forced me to save a lot and pay off my debt. So I kind of just
that's
went
awesome.
for it. Yes.
That's awesome. And so, Olivia, I've noticed something about you because you seem to like to double dip a little bit. And so you're learning, you're getting paid for it, but you mentioned something a little bit earlier, and I don't want it to escape anyone. You mentioned house hacking, which is the ultimate double dip. Can
Yes.
we talk about house hacking? A lot of doctors in my community are learning to house hack. I think it is such a powerful tool. However, for those who are not well acquainted, what is house hacking?
Ugh, it is my favorite strategy. So, house hacking is when you buy an investment property, and instead of just like buying it for someone else to like rent it out, it's somewhere where
Mhm.
you will actually be living yourself, and then you're renting out other parts of it for additional income. Now, there are so many ways to do this. Like, your basic form of house hacking is buying a house and having roommates. Like, that is literally
Yeah,
house hacking, because you're getting your whole
that's
the
true.
goal is to get your whole mortgage completely paid off. But then you can kind of find some more strategic, a little bit more, I'll call them like a luxury house hacks, right? Where you go into duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, so your small multifamily, or you find a single family home that has a basement or an attic. Right now, I actually just purchased a house where it's exactly like that. So I can separate that into two separate units. Or maybe there's a mother-in-law suite or a carriage house
Yeah,
in the back that's like a separate house, or an ADU, like an accessory dwelling unit. Basically, what those are just carriage houses, is essentially the same thing.
yeah.
But there are so many cool ways to live for free, because the whole big thing about house hacking is a lot of people get into real estate investing to make more money, right? But what people don't
Mhm.
realize is most people's biggest expense that they have is housing, right? It's your rent, it's your mortgage, right? So how can we minimize that as much as
Mm.
possible? And so I remember at the time I was living in New Orleans. I was renting a 2-bedroom place. It was $1,800 a month. That's really not even that much, but it was still a lot. I was like, this is a lot of my paycheck that's going to housing, right? And
Yeah.
so my
Mm-hmm.
first step was to buy a duplex in New Orleans. I lived on one side, short term rented out the other side because more cash flow and it was way more fun. And that covered my mortgage completely and gave me extra cash flow on top of that, right? So now I'm going from paying $1,800 a month in rent to not paying anything in rent, not paying a mortgage, and making money on top of that.
It doesn't get better than that. I honestly love it's a strategy. I've seen it help a lot of our members that have been in a pinch. Say, for instance, we have a member that's going through some family life transition changes, right? A divorce, sadly. And so,
Yeah.
because she has this house hack, she could offset a lot of those expenses associated with that. And so,
Yep.
it's just been a lifesaver. And you know what I like to say, Olivia, is like with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as long as your food and your shelter and water is covered, doesn't matter how hard and burnt out you are, you get to live another day. And I
Yeah.
think that house hacking is one of the best ways to really respond to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If your mortgage is covered, like, okay,
Yes.
there's nothing like knowing that your mortgage is covered month after month after month. So my question to you though is when I pitch it to members of the community or someone that I meet that I believe like, wow, your story is really stressful. Why don't you consider a house hack? And their first response is, well, you want me to get murdered. Could you tell me a little bit about the safety
Oh my
considerations?
goodness. Okay,
Right?
so
Seriously, is that dramatic? I'm like, girl, you're not paying. You're a whole doctor. You
oh
can't
my
pay your
goodness.
bills, and I'm telling you to go and house hack, and that's your answer for me. We're gonna still use common sense, boo. We're gonna still
Well,
use.
and it's like, do you have neighbors? Do you have neighbors? They do you have you ever lived in an apartment complex? Like have you ever lived in a townhouse? It's the same
It
thing.
is separate entry, and so that is what you mentioned a little bit earlier, guys. So these are essentially detached in a way. They may be attached, but they have their own separate private entry, a finished
Mhm.
basement, a granny flat, a casita, a carriage house, an accessory dwelling unit. It is like a separate house attached to your house, essentially.
Exactly.
So yeah, yeah.
Completely separate spaces. You can have your whole own security system for your side if you're really freaked out about it. Put your own door locks in. Do not worry. It's literally two separate houses.
Yeah, yeah,
or more, right? So I have one of
or
my
more.
student yeah, like one of my mentees, she actually just converted a house from a single family into a triplex. And like literally went from paying $4,000 a month in rent in New York to buying a property in Seattle and converted it into a triplex and is able to live for free there.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I love that. I love that strategy. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so this is one of the things, guys. If you're not house hacking and you feel the crunch and the tightness of your monthly expenses, consider properties with those additional units or a
Yeah.
property with a finished basement or a property where there's potential. What would you say are some key indicators that hey, this property could make a great house hack outside of already having a finished basement with the door? What are some things that you're looking for in a house
Yeah,
hack
so
opportunity?
a lot of places won't have like the finished separate entrance, right? But I'm always looking at if there is a stairway to the basement, can I block it off, right? Can I put a wall up and a
Mhm.
door in so that it can be completely separate entrances, right? Or is there somewhere, for example, in Austin, this is a really popular tactic right now, is you find a house where it has a really large primary suite, right? And that primary
Mm.
suite, you can put a little kitchenette in it, close that off, and now literally that room becomes essentially like a hotel room, right? But it has its own little kitchenette. It's
Mm.
really cute, super adorable. So that's some way to take just a general regular house, add a door to the exterior so you have separate entrances and you can close that off. And that's a way to essentially create what they call a sneaky duplex.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I love that. I love that. And of course, I have kids, right? And so for me, I am concerned about safety, but we have house hacked through and through throughout their lives, even when they're little. I mean, it is a game changer. Again, it's taking into consideration the safety of the area that you are purchasing a property in. I prefer to purchase properties in, like, the better school districts, a
Yeah.
little bit of a quieter area, maybe a little bit older demographic, And so, yeah, thankfully, we have not had any issues with probably over a decade of house hacking on and off ourselves, which is
How are you house hacking? Like, what's your setup like?
so typically in Georgia, the properties are 2 and 3 stories for the most part. A 1 story is rare. In Florida, it's typically 1 story. They're called ranches. So a finished basement is the house hack in Georgia that we would leverage for the most part. There's a
Perfect.
garden entry, and it's usually like a 2 bedroom area, nicer than the main house, because you know how we do. We keep.
Yes.
I saw your post on social media
100%.
with your
I've
mattress.
been living in my house, like my main house is beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm living in shambles right now.
Yes. All day. Did the mattress? I know you had the mattress. Did the bed frame finally come in?
Wednesday. It comes in tomorrow, girl. I am so excited.
I am counting down for you.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh. I love it. That's how we roll, though. We want to
Yeah.
give that extra special guest care because at the end of the day, they're paying all the bills. So why not?
Truly.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I want to shift gears with you a little bit, Olivia, because I struggled when I was thinking about cutting back. Like you, we don't become that pedestal child who went through, all the things, and then our parents, who sacrificed so much. We don't get a master's or a doctorate just to say bye-bye to career. That was never in the works for me. And yet here we are.
Right.
Yet here we are. So, what was your biggest challenge when it came to like shedding those titles, shedding that corporate essentially identity, shedding the title of I'm a master's degree in engineering and I've got all these accolades. I had to shed the doctorate. How
Yeah.
did you mentally prepare yourself, if at
I
all,
mean,
for that type
I
of
was going
leap?
to say, I don't know if I mentally prepared myself
Mhm,
because I decided it somewhat suddenly. Because originally the plan
mhm,
was I'm going to, wait 3 to 5 years. And everyone says this, trust
mhm,
me. Everyone, when they start getting, they're like, okay, in 5 years, I'm going to have 5 properties and I'm going to quit my job. And I was kind of in that
mhm.
situation too. Even I had one property, which was my first duplex, and then I was under contract on my next one. And that was actually the time where I decided to quit. And the only reason I even had the confidence in myself to be able to quit with literally just one property was because I had all of my living expenses covered. I had
Yeah.
extra cash flow on top of that. And so I was like, literally, worst, and I had some savings too. And so I was like, worst case scenario, I sit my butt in this duplex for the next 6 months and figure it out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
have all my living, like my basic needs covered. In terms of shedding the identity, I cried.
Mhm.
And I had no expectation that this was going to happen because it felt like I was ripping a part of me out, right? Because I just spent so much time being, the pride and joy of my parents, right? Like
Yeah.
strong, Black, independent young woman in STEM, a
Yeah.
chemical engineer. Like she's in
Yeah.
the workforce, she has the 6-figure job, all this stuff. But for
Yeah.
me, I had all of this, but I was also taking antidepressants. I was so over it.
Ooh.
I was so done. I would get back from work exhausted every single day, pouring myself like 2 or 3 glasses of wine. And I remember waking up one day and was like, this cannot be my life for the rest. Like, I don't know how much longer I can
Mm.
do this for. And so that really, it like catalyzed this desire to get out and do something about it. But yeah, I remember when I told my parents to, we had a falling out. Like literally, we were yelling, and I was just like, this is like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. If you can't support that, I don't know what to tell
Mm.
you, but this is what I'm doing. And so we didn't speak for a month after that. Now, biggest supporters, they're like, we told you you could do it. Right?
I love
Oh
that.
man. But
Oh
at
my
the time it was
goodness.
not like that, you know?
Mm. Good for you. You know, it took me a year to tell my parents.
Oh my
They
gosh.
were like, my husband, he kept like hinting, yeah, she doesn't work anymore.
Wait, so you quit and then just like didn't tell them?
I'm scared to death. I have
Oh my
immigrant parents. What
gosh.
do
Oh,
you
I feel that, girl. And they got mine got mad. Like,
know? You better believe
oh
I'm
my
like
goodness.
mid-40s and I'm scared to death to tell my parents that I quit. So
Oh my
more power to
gosh.
you. You're a better woman than me. But what I'm hearing here is, you know what? You decided you were not going to continue to light yourself on fire to make others feel warm.
100%. And it's just not worth it. And because the thing is you have to take care of yourself first before you can
Mhm.
even take care of anyone else. And I'm like, I feel so much more equipped now to help others, and I give back
Mhm.
so much more because I've taken care of me and my
Yeah.
mental health and my needs first, you know? Okay, fam, if you have been feeling stuck in your corporate job or in your career and you've been looking to level up, this is going to be for you. Now, this has been a long time coming, but I am finally hosting the inaugural Wanderlust Wealth Retreat here in Denver, Colorado, March 6th through March 9th. Now, this is for the person who either hasn't gotten started investing in real estate, or maybe they've bought one, maybe two properties and are starting to doubt themselves. Maybe they're thinking, can I actually live life on my own terms? Can I really stick it to the man and go travel and spend more time with the people that I love instead of going into a gray office every day? If any of those sound like you have to be at this retreat. Now, it's actually going to be at my Airbnb here in Denver, Denver Art House. And we have both an all-inclusive ticket as well as a local Denver ticket. So the all-inclusive ticket is going to be food, accommodation, all of that included. Whereas the local Denver one, the food and accommodation won't be included, but you'll be able to come and attend all of the core events. So if you're ready to level up your life and really, really make 2025 your year, make 2026 the year that everything freaking changes for you, you must come. Because here's the thing, you don't have to go at this real estate investing entrepreneurship thing all alone. The relationships that you make in in-person events are literally unparalleled. They've changed my life and so many other folks around me, and I know it's going to change yours too. Now, tickets are going fast, so make sure you get signed up ASAP. Check the link in the show notes for more details and to go get signed up, or DM me the word retreat on Instagram. That way we can get you signed up and ready to freaking go. Now, it is going to be a really small, intimate group. So like I said, tickets are actually going to go really, really fast, and they've already started going really fast. So get signed up as soon as you possibly can, and I will see you there.
100%, 100. And I feel like as women, we are that innate caregiver, whether it's we're caring for our bosses and the workplace and, you know, our team and our families and our parents and so on and so on. So what would you say, Olivia, to that woman in medicine, that woman in engineering, that woman who's a dentist who feels a bit stuck right now? What
Yeah.
advice would you give them to maybe find the courage to explore some other things, whether it's real estate, you and I we're in real estate, whether it's real estate or whether it's something else altogether?
So I'm actually doing this thing right now, and I try to do this every
Mm,
few months, is really getting reconnected back with your authentic self. Because
mm,
especially as adults, there are so many things that have affected us internally, and like the way
mm,
we think we're supposed to be and how we view the world, that aren't actually our own thoughts and our opinions, right? So the goal is to kind of strip a lot of that back so you can get back and connected with your authentic self. So ask yourself questions of like, if you really didn't have to be doing your current job right now, or you didn't
mm,
have all of these responsibilities, what would you be doing? How would you be spending your life? What were those things when you were younger that like gave you joy and energy and made you made you super happy running around? Like, what were those things that gave you joy? When you think about things that whenever you're scrolling on the internet, right? What are those things that you're sharing with your friends? What are those things that make you smile? What are those things that you save to your phone or anything like that? Get connected back with that, because remember, you're trying to bring more of that into your life, because that is really your authentic self, not what like the noise
Mm.
that's coming from all these other people around you.
I love that. So let's talk about that a little bit. Could you give me a few examples? I see you traveling the world.
Yeah.
What are some other tips to get the wheels turning? Because I remember a time where when folks would ask me, well, what do you like doing for fun? I'm like, I don't know. I work every day. I work 14
Totally.
hour shifts. That's it. So what are some things outside of travel that we can think about?
So it could be anything from painting, it could be dancing,
Mm.
it could be singing, it could be spending time with people. So, for example, this was really interesting that I actually discovered today as I was writing in my journal and doing some meditations and stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, wait, this is so true. So, when I was younger, I used to love The Sims. Like, my favorite, like,
Oh, yeah.
games, right? Were Sims, Roller
Yeah.
Coaster Tycoon, and Diner Dash. And I realized part of that was I had this strong, like with The Sims, of creating beautiful spaces. And I would do the thing where I'd get as much money as possible, right? Like I'd use the cheat
Mhm.
codes to get as much money as possible to create the most beautiful places. And I'm like, that's basically what I'm doing in real life, right? you know?
For real.
Oh
That's
my goodness.
amazing. So is that what you mean by reconnecting with what interested you when you were younger?
Exactly, exactly. And like,
Love
there's
that.
one of my friends. She is an incredible podcast host, like literally, truly out of
Mm.
this world. And when she was younger, she used to do this thing where she'd have a talk show where it's like Keisha, the talk show host, that she would like as it like when she was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, that she'd do for her friends and her family. And she always like wanted to be a talk show host, but life happens, and then she ended up working for Google and HR and all that stuff, then quit and went into the entrepreneurship realm. But it was reconnecting back to that younger self and to that inner self of what she really wanted to do.
Love that. Love that. And so for you, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, you were on this amazing sabbatical. Could you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that birthday celebration? Where did you go? Share some of those experiences with us, woman.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love traveling. If you follow me or if you know me, I'm always somewhere. But I went to Argentina and accidentally went to Chile
Mhm.
for my 30th
Oh.
birthday. And my whole big thing is my love language, and why I do a lot of what I do is I love sharing beautiful experiences around the world with the people that I love and creating these wonderful memories. And I love taking my friends on trips and my family on trips, because whenever we get together, that's what we talk about, right? Like we talk about the memories, we talk about the good times. And so always like curating and creating these good times. So the cool thing is I was able to pay for like accommodation for everyone from the cash flow from that very first duplex. Cause I just like don't touch a lot of that. It pays for itself. The cash flows on top of it. I put that in a savings account and I keep letting it do its thing. I was like, don't worry, y'all, just show up. Right. But you, the thing about real estate, and this is what I'll tell, most real estate investors don't actually care about real estate investing, right? It's not like we're like,
Mhm.
yes, I love passion real estate investing, but it's what it can
Yeah.
provide for you. It's the lifestyle it can provide for you.
Mm.
It's the optionality, the freedom. And so for me, a big part of that is travel. The fact that I can manage my properties from all over the world. The fact that I can go and I turned my phone off for 5 days because I had systems in place, and I was able to put those systems in place so that my businesses ran themselves. And that's the freedom that you can create for yourself with real estate investing, with entrepreneurship.
I love that. So, speaking of strategies, so which would you say is your favorite strategy? I know house hacking for sure, but
Yes.
within house hacking, do you leverage long-term rental strategy, short-term rental strategy, or mid-term rental
So
strategies?
I've tried them all. I love the short. Short is my favorite. It's just I love, for me personally, as I think especially as a traveler, like I like
Mhm.
curating beautiful, it's more fun. You get to make beautiful, fun spaces. And if you know me, and if you I don't know if this is on YouTube or not, but I've got a very colorful
It
background behind me.
is
um
gorgeous, guys. Definitely watch on YouTube so you can see Olivia's beautiful backdrop as well as her beautiful jumper that matches her backdrop. Love it.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. But the thing I love about short term is people are also only there for a few days. So if you get an annoying
Mhm.
guest, they're out in like a few days,
Yeah,
which is really nice. And you have your eyes and ears on the properties at all
yeah,
times. So in general, I like short and mid because
yeah,
mid you can also bake because you're charging higher price points. I, for example, bake in cleaning every 2 weeks for my midterm
yeah,
rentals, always, right? But it's a lot harder to do that with long term rentals just because you have less cash flow on the property. And
yeah,
the reason I got into real estate investing is cash flow, right? It's
yeah.
at the beginning. It was cash flow. I need enough money to be able to survive. Let's do this. And so the fastest way to get there is going the short and midterm rental strategy for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. There's a big difference between the cash flow outlay of a short, a mid, and a long term rental. So, for those of you who are listening right now and you're like, okay, where's she getting all this cash flow from? Well, it sure isn't long term rentals. So, I want
No.
you to start rethinking that strategy for sure. Okay,
Yeah.
so a lot of things in real estate is honky dory, is great. However, we do face some setbacks. So let's talk a little bit about embracing setbacks. Can you share a time when you felt like, oh my gosh, this was a flop or something completely failed, whether it's in real estate or in your businesses? And ultimately, it led through maybe a breakthrough or something better on the other side.
Totally. And so I think on social media, right, we see the
Mhm.
sensationalism, 30 properties in 2 years, and I have 100 units, all this stuff. So at the beginning, I feel like most people are like, I want to scale to 20 properties in the next year or whatever. And which is, if
Mhm.
that is your goal and your method, amazing. However, I found that I hate doing that. I want less properties, more cash flow.
Yeah.
And so what that does too is at the beginning of my journey, like not with my first
Mhm.
house hack, but when I started buying just strict investment properties, the decisions I was making wasn't necessarily um associated with my goals, right? Like my whole goal was
Mm.
I'm investing for my lifestyle, right? Like the
Yeah.
whole reason why I'm able to take a bunch of time off and things like that is I've carefully curated my portfolio, my systems, my VAs, everything so that I can take a step back whenever I want to, right? Whereas I know so many people who have these giant portfolios and they can't even take a day off, you know?
Yeah.
And so and I have a few properties where they're nuisance properties right now. They are short-term rentals, but I bought them like super low cost in areas that do okay, and the cash flow could be a little bit higher, but I was getting partners on them because I wanted to scale super fast. Just an FYI, folks, too, with partnerships, they can be amazing, but just know you also technically have like another boss to answer to, right? And once again, when I
Mhm.
was getting into this, it was for time freedom, life freedom, the fact that I don't like answering to a boss, right? And so I had to really take a step back, put a pause, and be like, let's build this so that it actually supports my lifestyle and not to just say that I have
Mm.
a $50 million portfolio, but then I also have like 800 investors involved in that, you know?
Oh, so true, so true. And for us, we want to be intentional for 2025. We want to live with intentionality, and it all has to do, like you said, revisiting what your why is, revisiting what lights you up, what brings you joy. And I assure you, if one or two bosses does not bring you joy, 50 more bosses will not help your case either.
Yeah.
So with those, are you looking to kind of reposition, or you're just moving forward? You're not going to,
Right
explore those
now,
strategies. Mhm.
moving forward, well, as in holding on to those properties, we have a 5-year hold on those.
Okay.
They're doing fine, right? It's just
Hmm.
when I think about like and how I've approached every other property purchase after
Yeah.
that, it's about it's a lifestyle choice is a part of it,
Yeah.
right? And
I love
so,
it.
for example, those properties I purchased in Virginia in the Shenandoah Valley, super solid market, very
Mm.
stable. When am I going to Shenandoah? And so now I have these properties that I don't love and I don't like. The area's fine, it's cute, but it's not anywhere where I choose to go. I remember being like, yeah, I'll come visit these every year. No, I'm not going to come visit them every year. Like I have my team that handles it, but now they're just kind of there. And don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, it provides cash flow, all of that. But I
Yeah.
realized for
Yeah.
me personally, and this is not for everyone, but for me personally,
Yeah.
part of why I love having properties is I like being able to go there and enjoy them and use them. So, for example, my duplex in New Orleans, I'm going back to New Orleans in January. I get to go stay in one of my units. I get to see my friends, all of that. So it's also a lifestyle play.
Yeah. That is so good. I think that's so impactful because at the end of the day, you're right. I could see the struggle with like, when am I going to go back to Shenandoah? I'm not,
Yeah.
So, guys,
Oh.
yeah, be like, notice what Olivia just shared with us. Be mindful. Let's be mindful of where we're investing because we want to ensure that it's a place we at least are interested in. We may have family, we may have friends, so I think that's really important, not just follow the trends of everyone's like, go to Ohio in, war torn areas and invest. No offense. However, right at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know. I've never been, right? Why would I
Right.
go and invest there? So, so good. So good. Great advice. Alrighty, now it's time for some rapid fire,
Woo.
Olivia. I would love for you to share a moment with our audience when you felt kind of burnt out, essentially, and what did you do to overcome that?
Totally. And so one of, I know I was talking about how I got to a point where I was just fed up of corporate America and
Mm,
decided to quit. So I'm actually going to I want to tell you a story about that time. So
mm,
this was when I was at like max burnout. I'd actually invited my friends over in New Orleans. There's tons of events every single week, and a big one is called Red Dress Run. And I lived relatively close to the French Quarter. So I invited all of my friends over. We had a pregame, yada, 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 headed into the French Quarter. And we get there, and I just have a panic attack because I am so depressed. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? I don't want this to be my every weekend. I don't want to be living for the weekends. This isn't it.
mm.
And so I literally like run home, sit on the couch, just sobbing, just so unhappy and burnt out and over it. And then I signed up for a giveaway for a conference, short-term rental conference with the Robinsons. And I
Wow.
won. And I won. And I remember at the
Wow.
time, I was like, I don't have money for this. I think it was like a few hundred, even though I did, right? But I was like, oh, I don't
Right.
have the money to pay for this. But because I hadn't been trained to invest in myself yet, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I remember after I won tickets, booked my flight, booked my hotel. I'm like, I don't care what happens. I was supposed to be going offshore. I am taking vacation and I'm going to this conference. Getting in the room for the first time with so many motivated real estate investors who were crushing it, were doing amazing things, were like taking control over their lives, that is what got me unstuck. That is what forced me to take action. Literally on the
Mm.
plane back, I'm like, I'm quitting my job. I'm putting my 3 weeks notice in. So- yeah.
Wow.
So I would tell
That's
anyone, if you're stuck right
amazing.
now, you need to get yourself into environments where you can be in
Mm.
that energy around other people doing the thing that you want to do, who have the same goals, same mission. That is what's going to help you.
I've got goosebumps right now. That was so good. So essentially, you interrupted your whole pattern, right? And
Hmm.
we get stuck in our pattern. So good, guys. Oh my gosh. That was so good. That was so good. Question number two, my friend. Are there any books or podcasts or apps or tools that you're using right now that you're finding to be helpful in your business and your life that you'd highly recommend?
Yes. So this book, I make everyone read it. It is wonderful. It's what got me through I discovered it when I first discovered real estate investing and started really doing self-development stuff, but it's called Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo. It is fabulous. And I still use that to for everything, literally for everything. It's one of my like tenets or rules in my business is like everything is figure outable because everything really is. And whatever situation you're in right now, there's a way out of it. There's a way around it. You can figure it out. Most of the issues that we have right now, there are other people that have gone through the exact same thing. And you also have the power and the resources within yourself to figure it out. And so I always come back to that quote, that book, everything, because it's really so true.
Oh, I love that. And so, for those of you who are battling out on these W-2 streets with higher interest rates, and you're wondering, well, how would I get a loan? And you heard a no from the first lender, or the second lender just dropped your purchasing budget and slashed it by half. Everything's figure outable, my friend. Olivia
Yep.
says it, and I agree 100%. So good. Question number 3. What's the craziest real estate story that you have heard or experienced?
Yeah, so I'll tell you about this one guest that we had at one of my properties in Shenandoah. She was very interesting. So she had booked our place for about 8 or 9 days, something like that, and had asked a couple of weird questions like, can you see the hot tub from the road? And is this secluded? Stuff like that. We're like, yeah, no, it's pretty secluded. Everything's fine, whatever. And she was fine. A few weird questions, but we're like, okay, this is not a huge cause for concern, but a little, yellow flag, right? So she ended up booking. We didn't hear anything from her. She stayed at the property. Now, this property is on a well system. And if you don't know with wells, sometimes like you're at the end of the line or for whatever reason, they got to dig some more and well stuff. And so she gets to the property. The water's totally fine for the first few days. And then on the third day, I think it is, the water stops. Instead of telling us that the water stops, she stays at the property for the next 4 days. Doesn't tell us. We sent her our messages like, hey, how's everything going? She's like, everything's great. Thank you. Amazing. Blah, blah, blah. Suddenly on day about 7, she messages us and she's like, hey, I have to leave the property. My family got really sick. I have to go right now. Blah, 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 blah. Thanks for everything. We're like, okay. Well, we're so sorry. Like, I hope everything's okay. Let us know if you need anything. Leaves a few days early. And then she messages back, like, we get a notification from Airbnb saying she's requesting a full refund. We're like, what on earth is happening? Like, literally, excuse me. What? And I'd understand if it were a refund for the final days that she didn't stay, right? If we were able to rebook and blah, 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 everything, no worries. But like asking for a full refund, we're like, what is happening? And so apparently she's claiming like there was no water, and there wasn't, but we also didn't know. Like you didn't. When we had the messages showing, we'd asked how everything was. She said everything was okay and wonderful the entire time. And then she goes, we decline and tell Airbnb, hey, this chick is a little crazy.
Yeah.
And so then then she sees that we decline. She's like, we're going to report. I'm going to post this on TikTok and I'm going to show everyone how terribly you're running your business. There was no blah, blah, blah. I'm like, girl, you've been so strange the entire time. We asked you if everything was okay. You stayed at the property for 4 days without water instead of telling us so we could get someone out there to go and fix the water situation. And we would have like probably told you, hey, we're so sorry. Let's put you somewhere else. We don't want you to stay. You can't shower, can't do anything. So it turns, never ever heard back from her. Never posted on TikTok or anything. Airbnb was also like, I don't know. So yeah, that was one of the weirdest stories I've had at my properties for sure.
Wild.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. These folks never cease to amaze me. Olivia, it has been such a joy. Such a joy having you on the show. I love your story. There's so much synergy with what you've gone through, with what a lot of us in medicine have gone through as well. Journey from corporate life to full-time real estate investor, inspiring us all. I love, love, love the insights that you shared. And I know that our audience will have something to walk away with. So to everyone that's tuning in, remember that achieving financial freedom is a journey that starts with small intentional steps. Olivia, I'm fighting for my life, as you can see. I think I need more caffeine. Hopefully my editor removed all of this. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't because he thinks it's funny. But nevertheless, I would love everyone to check you out. Let us know how best we can connect with you. We will add everything in the show notes. Give it to us, woman.
Absolutely. So I am at the Olivia Tati. So TheOliviaTati on everything. Most active on Instagram, but I also super active on YouTube and my podcast called The Wanderlust Wealth Show, where we talk about how to use real estate investing to travel the world and live your dream life.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I'm Dr. Rachel Gainsborough. Until next time, keep investing in yourself and crafting the life that you deserve. Love you all to the moon and back. Olivia, thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye for now.
Okay, I hope you loved this episode. Even just listening back, I was like, damn, okay, I have some good pointers, because sometimes you get a little bit of imposter syndrome. You're like, oh my gosh, do I know anything? Can I actually help people, even though I've helped so many people? But it was just nice to go back and listen. I'm like, damn, those are some really good points. And I sometimes have to remind myself so that I actually take my own advice too. Don't forget, if you loved this episode, leave me a review on either Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. I would very, very much appreciate it. Okay, bye, fam. Thank you so much for listening to Wanderlust Wealth Show. Now, don't forget to follow the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, it would literally mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend or a family member, or literally like anyone off of the street. Like right now, go ahead, share it so you don't forget, or post it on social media and make sure to tag me. I love seeing what you're listening in on and what you resonated with, and I'm just so freaking thankful for you. I'm so freaking excited for you. I love you, and don't forget, life really doesn't have to be hard.